Today we jumpstart a new series all about learning how to do true metallic metals. What up, Mini family? For those unfamiliar, true metallic metals, or TMM, the counterpart to NMM, which we discussed last week, is the idea of using paints that have actual reflective pigments inside of them. So you don't need to try to understand where the shadows and highlights go. Using a paint that's reflective will do that for you when you put it under a light source. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, when I'm trying to get a really nice and eye-catching result, I resort to NMM. And when I'm doing a speed paint result, I resort to TMM. And I don't think that's really fair to TMM. There are a lot of artists out there in the world, Roman Gruba comes to mind, who are doing phenomenal things with TMM, and it looks gorgeous. So this series is all about trying to get the most out of our TMM. How do you get that eye-catching, beautiful result? Now we're going to start this series with testing a claim that I hear a lot, and that claim is that black is the best undercoat for silver. And that kind of got me thinking, what about gold or brass or copper or other kinds of metals? Is the best undercoat for them black, or is it something strange like purple or red or brown or gray? Is black even the best one for silver? I'm not sure, and we're going to find out today by busting out some more charts. So the first thing I started to do was lay out a grid. My sheet of plastic card is 8 inches by 12 inches, so to me it makes sense just to do an 8 by 12 inch grid. All the items on the x-axis were all the various undercoats, and all the items on the y-axis were going to be all the different kinds of metals. I had to cover up the horizontal running lines with tape before I laid down my undercoat, or else I would have lost them to the undercoat. I started with laying down an undercoat of white, specifically Badger's Stynol Res, and I started with white because I wanted all of the columns that were going to be a color to have an undercoat of white so that they could be their full, beautiful, rich opacity. After the white was fully dry, I started laying down colors. I started with yellow and then red, blue, a grass green, orange, a brown, an evergreen green, turquoise, and a purple, and then I had one row left that I hadn't anticipated, so then I just did a flesh tone color. I later found out that extra row that I had put flesh tone color on was supposed to be white, so I don't have a white color in this test. My bad. I also did gray and black. And now for the sexy reveal. It is ridiculously satisfying to pull tape off. Side note, the Tamiya masking tape worked a lot better than this generic masking tape that I found in a drawer in my house, so maybe there is something to masking tape. Comment below if you want a video reviewing different masking tapes. That sounds like a super fun video. I then started laying down metal tones. I did a gold and a brass and a copper and a silver and a dark silver and a turquoise metal color and even a purple metal color. This was a super fun experiment because there was cat hair everywhere. I could not get a single row of color that didn't have cat or dog hair in it. This whole process took a lot longer than I thought it would take. Taping down each row and then spraying a nice opaque color and then moving on to the next one, making sure that previous one was fully dry before taping it up. You know, it was a non-trivial amount of time. So what I'm saying is that you should appreciate me because I need appreciation. As if my ego wasn't big enough already. For each metal color that I used, I had 2 zones. I had one zone which was 1 layer of color, and then the one right to the right of it was 2 layers of color. I wanted to test to see if opacity affected the undercoat. In our base coating video, we did something similar. We had how many layers of color does it take until the base coat effect is completely gone. And what we noticed is that the more layers of color you added to the eye, it was visually indistinguishable beyond layer 3. But there was some measured difference, but that isn't necessarily the most important. The most important is what our eyes can actually see. And for me, with this metal experiment, what I'm noticing is that when you put down a second layer, or basically if you have a full opacity metal color, the undercoat doesn't seem to make much of a difference at all. Now, for the layers that are not fully opaque, you can obviously see the undercoat through it. There are certain rows that are like, whoa, that sucks, yellow, what are you doing? Like, get a job, everything looks bad on you. And there are other certain colors that's like, oh, that kind of works, like for the copper tone and the red row. That makes sense, that looks good. And obviously for the turquoise metal and the turquoise row, that works and that makes sense. But for everything else, it just looks what it looks like. You know, the undercoat has had an effect. Do you like that effect or not? Well, that's kind of up to you. And so a picture of this grid will be provided in the description in a link that you can go and look to see what kind of effect you might like. But just keep in mind that if you apply a fully opaque layer of paint, the undercoat is going to have little to no effect. So something just to keep in mind. You guys should take a look at the picture in the description and let me know if you see something different than I'm seeing, because I'm not seeing too much of a difference between each individual row for the fully opaque metallics. All right, let's move on to another claim that I hear a lot, and that's that if your undercoat is glossy, your metal will be shinier. I started with a bigger area of black this time, priming with Badger's Stynylrez black, and then on the left-hand portion used Scale 75 flat black, which is notorious for how flat it is. And then on the right-hand portion, I used Vallejo Game Color black and juiced it up a little bit more with some gloss varnish. I then also went back and added additional layers of gloss varnish over top of it just to make sure it was really, really distinguishably gloss. Another pro tip I picked up while doing this video and cleaning out my airbrush like every 5 seconds, a spray bottle is really good for getting the majority of the paint out without needing to waste a lot of cleaner or paper towel. You just spray it right in there, and it kind of has enough pressure just to kind of clear out all the color. So pick up a spray bottle. So the gloss conclusions are pretty similar to the other conclusions we had. When something is fully opaque, the undercoat doesn't seem to matter a whole lot, at least not that I can tell. But on the half opacity examples, it is certainly clearer that the glossy portion has more of a sheen than its matte counterpart. I just want to stop myself right there and say that I was watching one of my favorite prop makers, Bill Duran, on Punished Props. I'll link the video right now. And he did a lacquer enamel gloss base coat and a lacquer chrome finish on top of it, and it looked amazing. So I want to see if we can use the same products he used for similar ones and do the same things for miniatures. So this gloss black test is not entirely conclusive yet. So I guess the takeaway for this experiment for me is, if you know you're going to be base coating your metals in a translucent fashion, then the undercoat really matters and has value. But if you're going for a strong opaque base coat, then it doesn't really matter. And you shouldn't be too concerned about this. And this kind of holds true for all acrylic paint. If you want your undercoat to show through and have real, actually noticeable value, you need to paint with acrylic paints that are translucent. You cannot use fully opaque paints. All right, guys, that wraps up this first segment of the True Metallic Metals series. I'm super excited to explore other things about this series and about what we can do with true metallic metal paints to make them look really good and really special. Let me know if some of the conclusions that you found in your miniature hobby differ from mine. Let me know if I made mistakes in this test and weren't testing things correctly. Let me know what you want me to do in the future for this series. What do you want me to investigate? Maybe using graphite, using metallic pigments, maybe trying to burnish the paint. Let me know all the things you want me to explore, and I will do that in the future. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe and I, and most importantly, don't forget to paint more metal!